Imagine waking up and finding your reflection still asleep. You rub your eyes, trying to shake off the remnants of a dream, but a chill creeps up your spine. The room is heavy with silence, each tick of the clock amplifying the feeling of isolation. You turn toward the mirror, searching for a familiar face, yours, but instead, all you see is darkness lurking behind you, a shadow that feels all too real. It's unsettling, that feeling of being watched, yet here you are, utterly alone. Every night, the echoes of the past creep back in. Moments of clarity are fleeting, often replaced by an overwhelming sense of dread. It starts innocently enough, a soft creak of a door behind you as you drift into sleep, and you freeze, heart pounding in your chest. You turn, only to find nothing there. Or so you think. You shake your head, dismissing it as the wind, the house settling, but the feeling lingers, clawing at your mind. The house, once a sanctuary, now feels like a cage, each room a reminder of what you've lost, and what you can never escape. Every night, you replay those moments in your mind, his voice, low and mournful, echoing in your ears. It's a voice you recognize, one that should bring comfort, yet it fills you with a deep, unsettling fear. Your father's voice. But he's gone. Or is he? In that moment, you realize the truth, the past never really dies. It waits in the shadows, biding its time, ready to rise again. You sit up in bed, your heart racing, the silence stretching uncomfortably around you. A suffocating sense of dread envelops you as you gather the courage to move. Each step feels like a descent into the unknown, as if the very floorboards beneath you might give way. You inch toward the door, every instinct screaming at you to turn back. Yet, deep down, a part of you knows, this is just the beginning. Home, a word that once invoked warmth and safety. Yet now, standing in the doorway of my childhood home, I feel a chill run down my spine. The structure looms before me, an eerie silhouette against the moonlit sky. Its once vibrant facade has faded, giving way to peeling paint and creeping ivy that claw at the walls like fingers reaching for salvation. The windows are dark and vacant, like hollow eyes staring into the abyss. It feels as though the house itself is breathing, sighing under the weight of memories it can't shake off. As I step inside, the door creaks open, groaning like a reluctant companion. The air is thick with the smell of old wood, damp and musty, a scent that wraps around me like a shroud. Dust motes dance in the dim light, suspended in the silence that envelops the room. I can almost hear the echoes of laughter from the past, but they're quickly overshadowed by an unsettling stillness that hangs heavy in the air. There's an unmistakable chill in the air, a coldness that seeps into my bones. I wrap my arms around myself, attempting to ward off the creeping dread. It feels as if unseen eyes are watching, judging me as I wander through this relic of my past. The hairs on the back of my neck stand on end, each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet amplifying the sensation. It's then that I hear it, the unmistakable sound of footsteps above me. The camera shifts to the ceiling, showing the darkened staircase leading up to the second floor, shadows pulling in the corners. Heart races as I freeze, my pulse pounding in my ears. The house, once a shelter, now feels like a trap. The footsteps grow louder, deliberate, echoing in the stillness of the night. Who, or what, could be up there? I consider my options. Should I investigate or flee? My feet feel like lead as I step closer to the staircase, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. But something compels me forward, a force stronger than fear, driving me to uncover the truth hidden within these walls. With each step, I am acutely aware of the oppressive atmosphere, as if the house itself is alive, breathing with me. The air thickens, charged with an electricity that raises the hairs on my arms. I glance back over my shoulder, half expecting to see someone standing behind me, but there's only darkness. I reach the top of the stairs, heart pounding. The hallway stretches out before me, lined with closed doors that seem to hide their own secrets. One door, slightly ajar, beckons me closer. A cold draft escapes from within, swirling around my ankles, carrying the scent of decay and something sweeter, a hint of nostalgia mingled with sorrow. As I stand at the threshold, My mind races with questions. What lies behind that door? Is it a memory, a ghost, or something far more insidious? Just as I gather the courage to push it open, a loud crash echoes from downstairs, jolting me from my reverie. The sound of shattering glass. My heart skips a beat. Whatever is here, it's not just a memory. It's alive. My father was a man of few words, his presence a shadow that loomed large in our home. It wasn't that he didn't love me, it was as if he simply didn't know how to show it. Cold, detached, he carried an air of authority that felt more like a weight than a shield. Growing up, I learned to tread carefully, measuring my words, my actions, always fearful of provoking his anger or disappointment. Those feelings of neglect haunted me long after the good-night kisses and bedtime stories faded into memory. There was a time when I desperately sought his approval. I remember a baseball game, the summer sun blazing overhead, and the smell of fresh-cut grass lingering in the air. I hit a home run, my heart swelling with pride as I turned to see his reaction. But instead of the cheers I craved, I was met with his usual stoicism, a nod, nothing more. That moment became a turning point, a lesson learned. No matter what I did, I would always be invisible to him. But with my siblings, it was different. My older brother, confident, athletic, a natural leader, had my father's unwavering admiration. Every touchdown he scored or every trophy he brought home was met with praise, a spotlight shining brightly on him. I watched from the sidelines, feeling the weight of my father's pride in someone else's achievements, while I struggled to even earn a flicker of his attention. My younger sister was also a favorite, her bright smile and bubbly personality melted his heart. He'd take her on fishing trips, teaching her how to cast a line and bait a hook. I could see the joy in her eyes, the way she beamed under his praise. Those moments were like daggers, each laugh, each shared memory piercing through me as I remained an outsider in the very family I longed to be part of. Even during family gatherings, he was distant, lost in his own world. I'd watch my mother try to bridge the gap, her gentle nudges and hopeful smiles falling flat against his icy demeanor. It was a dance I knew all too well, the constant push and pull, where love was a foreign language neither of us could speak. Those moments of joy for them were tainted with my own feelings of inadequacy. "Why can't you be more like your brother?" he'd bark, cutting me down with a single phrase, the words echoing in my mind like a haunting refrain. While they were praised for their talents and successes, I was left to grapple with the cold realization that I would never measure up. As my siblings basked in my father's affection, I felt like a ghost, a presence longing to be seen but forever overshadowed by his indifference. I learned to hide my failures, to mask my tears. As I grew older, I sought solace in my own world, where the echoes of his disappointment couldn't reach me. But no matter how far I ran, the shadow of his presence always lingered, a reminder of what I could never be. Even in those moments of rebellion, I craved his approval, wishing he could see beyond the facade I had created. I longed for a father who would stand beside me, someone to share my victories and my struggles. But instead, I felt the sting of rejection, the bitterness of unfulfilled dreams. That conflict, that struggle for understanding, became the defining aspect of our relationship. It was a battle of wills, one where I was always left feeling defeated. As I stood before my father's empty chair at the dinner table, the weight of his absence pressed down on me, a ghost haunting the very fabric of our lives. Now, standing in this house, I can feel him everywhere, in the creaking floorboards, in the shadows that stretch across the walls, in the faint whispers that seem to echo my name. It's as if he never truly left, as if his spirit lingers here, trapped in the very essence of the place we once called home. I woke up one ordinary morning, the kind that lulls you into a false sense of security, as if the world outside was merely a figment of my imagination. The sunlight warmed my face, coaxing me from the depths of restless dreams. But as I rubbed the sleep from my eyes, something felt off, an unsettling heaviness in the air that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Glancing across the room, my eyes fell upon an old family photo I hadn't touched in years. It hung crookedly on the wall, the colors faded, yet something felt profoundly different. As I stared, I realized it had been moved, the frame discolored as if someone had been handling it. The unease bubbled within me, a knot twisting in my stomach. I took a cautious step closer, my heart pounding in my chest like a frantic drumbeat. The warmth of the sunlight felt distant, as if a cold breeze had swept through the room, chilling me to the bone. I could almost hear the echoes of laughter trapped within the frame, memories I had tried to bury. But now, they clawed their way back into my consciousness, relentless and haunting. Just as I reached out to straighten the frame, a sudden noise echoed from the hallway, a sharp, jarring sound that shattered the silence like glass breaking. It was a loud thud, the kind that sends adrenaline surging through your veins, making you freeze in place, heart racing, breath hitching in your throat. I stood there, paralyzed, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. What had I just heard? The thud felt almost deliberate, as if something or someone was beckoning me to investigate, to uncover the truth hidden in the darkness. But dread washed over me, a wave of instinctual fear screaming at me to stay put, to turn back and pretend none of this was happening. Against my better judgment, curiosity drew me closer to the door. Each step felt like a betrayal to my instincts, the warmth of the sun now replaced by a bone-chilling draft that seeped through the cracks. The whispers twisted in my ears, like a language I couldn't quite grasp but instinctively understood. It was a warning, a harbinger of what lay ahead. As I turned the knob, a heavy silence enveloped me. It felt as if the world had paused, holding its breath, waiting for my next move. I stepped into the hallway, the floor creaking beneath my weight, the dim light casting long shadows that danced around me. Then came another noise, a soft, almost inaudible whisper, drifting down the hallway, beckoning me further. I could feel it calling my name, wrapping around me like a cold embrace. My heart raced, and I felt the overwhelming urge to flee, but a force beyond my understanding pulled me deeper into the house, deeper into the shadows where my father's memory intertwined with something more sinister. In that moment, I stood on the precipice of discovery, teetering between the familiar and the unknown. But the overwhelming sense of dread rooted me in place, my instincts screaming to turn back. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was lurking in the shadows had waited too long to be acknowledged. I had no choice but to confront the darkness, my father's ghostly legacy woven into the very fabric of the house. Each moment felt like an eternity as I ventured deeper into the hallway, every instinct urging me to turn back. The atmosphere thickened around me, a palpable tension that clung to my skin, whispering secrets I was not ready to uncover. It began with subtle disturbances. An object on the shelf would shift slightly when I turned my back, or I'd catch a glimpse of movement just out of reach of my vision, shadows flickering like dark whispers against the walls. I tried to dismiss these occurrences as tricks of the mind, the product of an overactive imagination fueled by years of repressed emotions. But then the whispers began, soft, ethereal sounds that drifted through the air like smoke. "Come closer," they seemed to say, curling around my ears, calling my name in tones both familiar and foreign. Every reflection became a nightmare, they were grotesque reminders of what lay beyond the surface. I found myself staring into the hallway mirror, entranced and horrified as the faces morphed, twisting into expressions of despair, grief, and rage. Each glimpse left a chill settling deep within my bones, a silent scream that echoed long after the images faded. As I moved further down the hall, objects began to fall without warning, an old book tumbling from the shelf, a vase shattering on the floor, its pieces scattering like memories I had long since buried. The noise was deafening, punctuating the eerie silence that filled the reminding me that I was not alone. I was caught in a dance with the unseen, the very air around me crackling with tension. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, a voice cut through the din, a chilling whisper, unmistakable yet indistinct, beckoning me closer. "Come. Find me." It was my father's voice, a hollow echo from the past, sending a shiver of recognition through my core. I hesitated, caught between the instinct to flee and the need to understand. What was happening? Was this a manifestation of my guilt, my unresolved feelings towards a father who never acknowledged me? The atmosphere thickened, and the weight of his absence pressed down on me like a heavy fog. The shadows felt sentient, moving with a purpose that unnerved me. I could feel their eyes on me, the weight of their gaze pressing down like a judgment I wasn't ready to face. Panic bubbled within me, and I fought the urge to scream, to cry out for help. But what good would it do? I was alone, trapped in a house that held more than just memories. It was a prison of my father's making. If you were in this situation, what would you do? Let me know in the comments below. What would you say to your father if you had the chance? Would you confront him, or would you turn away? I'm eager to hear your thoughts. The house groaned in response, the wood settling, the shadows deepening as if my very thoughts had conjured a darker presence. It felt like a living entity, drawing from my fears, amplifying my anguish. Each room I stepped into was a time capsule, memories replaying like a warped film reel, flickering between moments of joy and despair. I ventured into the living room, where the echoes of laughter once filled the air. Now, it felt hollow, an emptiness that echoed my own despair. The furniture stood like ghosts of the past, casting elongated shadows that flickered in the light, haunting me with their stillness. And then it happened. Just as I stepped deeper into the room, the atmosphere shifted. I felt a rush of air, cold and sharp, as if something had swept past me, barely missing my skin. My heart raced, each beat echoing in my ears like thunder. I turned, only to find the room still and silent, the shadows more pronounced, the corners darker. I was losing my grip on reality, caught in a whirlwind of emotions. It was as if the house itself was a living thing, feeding off my fear, thriving on the turmoil of my memories. Each moment pushed me closer to the brink, the threshold between this world and whatever lay beyond. And just when I thought I could bear no more, a low growl reverberated through the air, primal and raw, shaking me to my core. It was a sound that felt ancient, echoing the rage and sadness that had long been buried beneath layers of silence. I stood frozen, heart racing, trying to comprehend what was happening. I was not just haunted by memories of my father. I was ensnared in a web of emotions, of unresolved conflicts and unspoken words. The house had become a battleground, and I was caught in the crossfire. I felt the ground shift beneath me, and in that moment, I understood. This haunting was a reflection of my own struggles, a manifestation of the darkness I had tried to bury. After a night filled with chaos and fear, I returned to my room, desperate for a moment of clarity, a chance to process everything that had happened. But the air felt thick with anticipation, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable confrontation that was about to unfold. I sat on the edge of my bed, heart racing, my mind racing with a whirlwind of emotions, still reeling from the haunting I had just endured. As I tried to gather my thoughts, the room felt colder, an unnatural chill creeping in. I pulled the blanket tighter around my shoulders, trying to ward off the growing sense of dread. And then I saw it, a flicker of movement at the foot of my bed. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to face the darkness, my heart pounding like a war drum, each beat louder than the last. It emerged slowly, almost reluctantly, as if it were struggling against the very fabric of reality. The shape was tall, looming, and for a moment, I could scarcely believe my eyes. There he was, my father, yet not quite the man I remembered. This figure was wreathed in darkness, its features obscured, but I could feel the weight of his presence bearing down on me, heavy with emotion. In that instant, a mix of fear and longing surged through me, colliding in a chaotic storm of unresolved feelings. This was not just a specter, this was a manifestation of everything I had ever felt, years of neglect, resentment, and a deep-seated yearning for validation. I wanted to scream, to run, to confront him, but I was rooted to the spot, trapped in a moment that felt both surreal and painfully real. As he drew nearer, the outline of his face became clearer, yet the expression remained shrouded in shadow. My heart raced as I struggled to reconcile the man I had known with this ghostly apparition before me. Was this the father who had abandoned me emotionally? Or was this the man I had longed to understand? He reached out with a hand that seemed to waver between the realms of the living and the dead. "You shouldn't have come back," he said, his voice low and haunting, yet tinged with a sadness that pulled at my heartstrings. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes, memories flooding my mind like a tidal wave. I longed to ask him why, to confront him about the years of neglect and emotional distance. But fear wrapped around my heart like a vice. Why did you love them more than me? I wanted to scream, but instead, silence hung heavy between us, thick and suffocating. It was then that I saw the truth. The darkness enveloping him was a reflection of his own turmoil, a manifestation of the regrets that had followed him into the afterlife. I could feel the weight of his sorrow pressing against me, and for a brief moment, I understood, he was just as haunted as I was. As he leaned in closer, the darkness shifted, obscuring his features once more. "You have to let go," he urged, his voice low and pleading. I felt my heart racing, fear and longing battling within me, and just when I thought I could reach out to him, the room plunged into darkness. And in that moment, I was left with nothing but shadows that clung to the corners of my mind, echoes of a father I could never fully understand. What had I just witnessed? Was this a chance for resolution, or was it just the beginning of a torment that would never end? In the days that followed that fateful encounter, my life transformed into a waking nightmare. Sleep became a distant memory, each night stretching into an agonizing eternity, haunted by the shadow of my father. I felt his presence lingering like a dark cloud, suffocating any semblance of peace. The sunlight that once flooded my room now seemed a mere illusion, overshadowed by an ever-present sense of dread. I tried to carry on with my daily life, but the weight of the haunting was unbearable. Friends called, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. Each ring of the phone felt like an intrusion, a reminder of the world outside, a world I was slowly withdrawing from. The laughter I once shared with them felt like a distant memory, a life I no longer recognized. Instead, I was alone, accompanied only by the shadows that lurked in every corner of my home. As I succumbed to the fear, I found myself drawn to the house, compelled to confront the darkness that had seeped into every crevice of my life. I began to explore the dark corners of the home, seeking answers among the dust-covered furniture and cobwebs that clung to the rafters like forgotten memories. Each creak of the floorboards beneath my feet felt like a reminder of the past, echoing the footsteps of a father I could never understand. I hesitated before the door, my heart racing. The study had always been off-limits, a realm where my father retreated to hide from us, his sanctuary, filled with secrets and unspoken words. I finally pushed the door open, the hinges protesting with a mournful creak, as if warning me against what lay inside. As I stepped into the room, the air felt charged, heavy with memories. My fingers brushed over the spines of books, each one a silent witness to my father's life, a life filled with untold stories and hidden struggles. I felt a strange pull towards a desk drawer, its handle tarnished with time. With trembling hands, I opened it, and the darkness within seemed to whisper my name. With a deep breath, I opened the journal, the pages yellowed with age. The writing was frantic, messy thoughts spilled out like a stream of consciousness, revealing the turmoil that had consumed my father's mind. I began to read, the words drawing me into a world I had never known, a glimpse into the man behind the ghost. Each entry was a revelation, a glimpse into a troubled past I had only seen through the lens of resentment. I learned of my father's struggles, the pressure he felt to provide for our family, the weight of expectations that crushed him. The love he had for my siblings shone through the pages, but it was tinged with pain, a pain that had driven a wedge between us. It struck me like a lightning bolt. My father had been a prisoner of his own demons. The shadows I had feared were not just his, they were a reflection of his struggles, haunting him long before they seeped into my life. But as I delved deeper, I uncovered more than just his thoughts. I discovered a hidden legacy of pain and sorrow that had been passed down, intertwining our lives in ways I had never understood. In that moment, I realized the haunting was not merely about the past, it was about healing, facing the pain that had plagued our family for generations. The realization brought a fresh wave of anguish, and I knew I had to confront not just the ghost of my father, but the ghosts of my own heart. What had I awakened? What darkness still lingered within these walls? The fear surged back, clawing at my insides, but this time, I felt a flicker of determination igniting within me. I could no longer run from the shadows, I had to confront them, to unearth the truth buried beneath layers of grief and regret. My heart pounded as I braced myself for the inevitable confrontation. The journal lay open on the desk, a testament to the truths I had unearthed, but the ghosts of the past loomed larger than any written word. I could feel the weight of my father's presence in the room, an oppressive force that stirred the air, sending shivers down my spine. I had to know why he was haunting me, why his shadow lingered like a specter in the corners of my life. "Why are you here?" I shouted into the stillness, my voice trembling yet resolute. "Why can't you leave me alone?" The shadows seemed to shift, coalescing into a figure at the foot of the bed. It was him, the outline of my father, a silhouette against the gloom, his features obscured but unmistakable. "I've done nothing but suffer in your presence," I continued, the words spilling from me like a flood. "You didn't care for me when you were alive, and now you haunt me. What do you want?" Each question felt like a dagger, driven deeper into the heart of our troubled relationship. For a moment, silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating. Then, in a voice that echoed like a distant thunder, my father finally spoke. "I never meant to hurt you," he rasped, each word dripping with regret. "I was lost in my own pain, consumed by guilt and expectations I could never fulfill." The shadows shifted as he stepped closer, the sorrow in his voice cutting through the veil of fear that surrounded me. I felt the walls of my anger begin to crack, as he recounted the burdens he had carried, his struggles with work, his feelings of inadequacy, the overwhelming guilt of not being the father I had deserved. "I loved your siblings," he admitted, "but I was afraid of what I felt for you. It terrified me that I could not connect, that my own darkness would taint you." In that moment, I realized this haunting was not merely a revenge from the past, it was his attempt to reach out, to make sense of the unresolved emotions that had trapped him in this liminal space. "I never wanted to be the father I was," he confessed, his voice trembling with an intensity I had never witnessed before. I felt the weight of his words. They struck me deep, a revelation that shattered the walls I had built around my heart. "But then, as the shadows danced around us," he continued, "but there is something darker, something that haunts me still." His eyes widened, the fear palpable in his gaze. "I failed to protect you from the darkness that lies within our blood." With that revelation, a chilling realization struck me. This wasn't merely about him, it was about the legacy of pain that I had inherited. "What do you mean?" I demanded, the words bursting forth in a rush of fear and curiosity. "What darkness?" "The darkness is not just my own," he said, his voice breaking. "It's a curse, a cycle that has haunted our family for generations. It will follow you, and if you do not confront it, it will consume you, just as it consumed me." His words echoed in the depths of my mind, a haunting prophecy that filled me with dread. I felt a surge of emotion, anger, sorrow, and an overwhelming desire to break free from this cycle. "I don't want this," I shouted, the defiance in my voice rising against the cacophony. "I want to live without your shadow over me." His shadow flickered, as if caught between two worlds. "You must confront it," he urged, desperation lacing his voice. "Only then can you be free. I have not come to torment you but to warn you." The energy in the room shifted, the oppressive weight of fear transforming into something else, an unsettling mix of dread and urgency. As the shadows began to engulf him, I felt an inexplicable urge to reach out. "Wait!" I cried, my voice echoing through the silence, but it was too late. The figure faded, leaving me alone in the room, the journal clutched tightly in my hands, the weight of his revelation heavy upon my heart. With my father's final warning ringing in my ears, I stood alone in the dim light, my heart racing. The true horror of our legacy began to unfold before me, a battle not just against the specter of my father but against the darkness that had long plagued our family. I knew I had to confront the truth, to face the specter of our past, and the shadows that whispered my name. Standing in the eerie silence, I could still feel my father's presence, a weight on my chest that pressed down harder with each passing moment. I thought I had come to terms with his haunting, believed I had begun to understand the turmoil that had tied us together. But as I stepped back, ready to confront the darkness within myself, an unsettling feeling washed over me. What if the haunting wasn't what I thought? It hit me like a cold wave. What if this wasn't my father's ghost at all? What if this apparition was merely a projection of my own unresolved feelings, my own guilt and pain reflected back at me? The realization twisted my stomach into knots. Perhaps I had conjured this figure, a manifestation of my inner turmoil, and in doing so, had trapped myself in a cycle of fear and regret. I took a deep breath, the chill in the air biting at my skin, as I fought against the suffocating dread. Was I truly alone in this house, or had I been haunted by my own mind all along? The questions spiraled, each one deeper and darker than the last, as if the house itself was urging me to uncover the truth. I hesitated for a moment, a chilling dread creeping up my spine. As I stepped toward the door, the whispers crescendoed into a chaotic frenzy, the shadows around me swirling violently. It was as if the very fabric of reality was unraveling, threatening to consume me whole. But before I could grasp the doorknob, I caught sight of something in the mirror on the wall, a reflection that stopped me in my tracks. My heart plummeted as I locked eyes with my own image, but something was off. The version of myself in the glass wore a twisted smile, one that was not my own, filled with a chilling satisfaction. I stepped back, my breath hitching in my throat. The reflection continued to smile, a sinister grin that sent shivers racing down my spine. It was as if the dark parts of me had come to life, mocking my attempts to escape the pain and sorrow that had plagued me for so long. No. This isn't real. I shouted, but the reflection merely tilted its head, the smile unfaltering, its eyes glinting with malice. It felt as though it was laughing at my torment, reveling in my fear. This was the true horror, the culmination of my darkest thoughts manifesting before me, a reminder that the greatest monster was within. I staggered backward, desperately trying to escape the reality of what I was witnessing. But as I turned away from the mirror, the shadows around me surged, and I felt the cold grip of despair close around my throat. It wasn't just my father's ghost that haunted me, it was my own demons, my guilt, my regret, and my unaddressed fears taking form. As the shards rained down around me, a surge of panic coursed through my veins. I realized I was at a precipice, standing between the past and the unknown future. The haunting was far from over, it had merely transformed, shifting into something I had to confront, not just externally but within myself. I could no longer hide from the truth, the darkness was mine to face. The reflection had shown me the monster lurking within, and I needed to confront it head-on if I ever wanted to break free from this cycle of torment. With my heart pounding, I steeled myself for the battle ahead. As I stood among the remnants of the shattered mirror, my heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. I had uncovered the dark truth that had haunted me for so long, but the battle was far from over. The whispers in the shadows promised that the haunting was merely beginning. With each breath, I felt the weight of my father's unresolved emotions pressing down on me, but I also felt a flicker of hope igniting within the darkness. I had a choice to make, to confront the shadows or to let them consume me. But what if confronting the ghost only led to deeper horrors? The realization hit me hard, perhaps this curse was not only tied to my father, but to the very fabric of my being. I had to face my past and embrace the shadows within if I ever hoped to escape. But the question loomed large, could I truly confront what lay in wait? Just then, a deafening silence fell over the room, the whispers snuffing out like candles extinguished by an unseen wind. In that moment of calm, I knew that the path ahead would be fraught with peril and darkness. But I also sensed that the answers I sought were waiting just beyond the threshold of fear. What you saw was just the beginning. There's more to this curse. But you'll have to see it to believe it. What horrors lie ahead? What dark truths will I uncover? Join me as I delve deeper into the shadows, and together we'll face whatever lurks in the darkness. If you enjoyed this chilling tale and want to uncover more horrors, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of our future stories. What do you think about the twist? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm eager to hear your theories. Until next time, Stay in the light, or you may find yourself drawn back into the shadows.